Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Line Change, the NHL betting podcast from the Action Network. My name is Michael Leboff, and joining me, as always, are my friends and co-hosts Nick Martin and Tim Kalinowski. Today, we will preview a three-game slate for Wednesday night, the last night before the All-Star weekend kicks off in Toronto. Thursday with the draft, Friday with the new fangled skills competition, Saturday with the game. Keep an eye on Twitter, I guess, because we won't have, a lot of the props and stuff in the app, but I think Nick will start game theorying up a bunch of picks for those three events. So keep an eye uh, on Twitter for what we're going to be betting. But we'll get to that later. Now let's do a quick sprint through these three games. We'll start with Ottawa and Detroit. I think this game got very interesting on Monday night when the Sens came back against the Predators. Uh, Ottawa's plus 110 here. Detroit is minus 130 and a total of 7. This game is in Detroit. Detroit is a minus 130 favorite. What that tells you is on neutral ice, these two teams, despite being 19 points adrift in the standings, are being viewed by the betting market as bang equals. Uh, there is some nuance to that, but that's like a general rule of thumb here. So that's really interesting. And I actually kind of like the Sens here because I hate this cliche and we overuse it, especially at our company, more maybe than anybody. But it does feel like this is our Super Bowl moment for the Sens. Like you go into the break, you put together like a 5-2-2 stretch or 6-2-2 stretch. The Red Wings are the team you're chasing. You have some games in hand, and you can maybe convince yourself, oh, if we win this one and we come back, they do have a soft schedule on the other side of the break. We could get ourselves back into this like playoff mix. It's not true, of course, but I think that's the motivational angle here. And Ottawa's been winning more lately than they were for a long time. So for the 30th time this season, I'm gonna say this is the last time. If they prove me wrong here, Nick, I'm done with the Senators, but I like them as an underdog here on the road.
Yeah, I wouldn't bet the Wings, but I'm not betting this. And you could say all those things ahead of that Rangers game where they got the Rangers in the best spot ever and the line moved 60 cents and and ultimately they just completely collapsed, which we've seen 100 times. They have no idea how to play in the big moments. They finally did it versus the Preds, but who cares? And I mean, the hugest part of it, and you talk about that Rangers game, it shows exactly why. They're playing a perfectly fine game, and then Kreider muffin goes in from 70 feet out, and the game completely flips. So it's just maybe a stronger, more resilient team would have been able to, get a handle on it and get things under control, but they haven't done that this year. And the goaltending is just such a question mark. And you look at it, they're not going to own more of the play than they have this month. Like they're right there in terms of the underlying results with anyone in the league. Like they're pretty much at the top in January. So I can't do it. I think the goaltending's too bad. And that ties in. There's 6.5s out there at minus 135, minus 140 at the time of recording. I would play those and then cut off at that. I wouldn't do the 7. As we've talked about, that's a huge difference in the percentage of the time you'll actually win. But I do like the over here. I think the narratives are just they're there right now. And then we look at the Detroit side of things. I don't think they've defended overly well at all, and it's starting to show. Right, you're really not going to get more from Lyon. Who shout out to Alex Lyon? Like he's legitimately proving to be one of the most underrated goalies in the league over and over, dating back to the start of last year. But I mean, I think they're due to give up a lot more goals. And I almost believe in their offensive play more, as I've continued to say. I think they do some things well I think they make life really tough on the opposition goalies. I think they're going to continue to finish at a higher than league average rate. So I like the over here. I don't mind your Sens call. If I was going to do the Sens, I'd probably just go with the team total. I think, I don't know, like over 3.5 is plus 100 at the time of recording. I think I would rather look at that than them to win. But I don't know. It's hard to say. It just I've had enough of dealing with their goalies, and it just feels like somehow, some way, everything's always gonna go wrong for them.
Well, I guess that leaves me, and I'm on the Red Wings. I already bet them on open. Leboff, you said that hey, the pricing here is pretty much equal teams on neutral ice. I think that is blasphemy when you talk about the goaltending difference in these two teams. Lyon has been hot as a pistol. Nick, you said it, and Ottawa has just been such a mess in net. I seriously like in a season where all we talk about is goaltending, I am so much happier to put my money on a team that's had better goaltending for the last, month and a half, 2 months. Like Ottawa, I can't get there, Lebov, even if you tell me they're even. Like I do believe you. I believe the rosters are pretty even. I am not betting on this Ottawa team getting sunk by goaltending. Like I just no chance. And I like it enough to go the other way and say, yeah, Detroit, big time goaltender edge.
Yeah, and it's funny. I feel like you grow weary to these super chalky overs where you're looking at it and it's like, how is this not gonna hit? Like I feel like those ones are always seemingly like something you kind of get burned on. But it's been dating back to that. I think it was a Tuesday game, the one versus Colorado that ended 7-4, and we had the over as one of the picks in that. And I've been thinking this since then. I'm like, how does this team ever open at 6.5 or anything close to it? And since then, they had the game versus the Jets, game versus Montreal, and the Bruins. So I guess they've been trending a little lower than I expected, but I think a lot of that was the teams they're playing. And I think Detroit right now, I don't see as an under team at all. I think they're kind of due to give up a lot more goals than they have been. Their defensive play still looks pretty mid. So I think Ottawa will get theirs offensively here. And then you're just talking about whether or not Detroit can get a few past whoever goes in goal for Ottawa. Probably Corpusalo, I think, right? Because he came in and
Don't
studied the
care.
ship for 2 periods yesterday.
Don't matter.
No, who does care? Because he was the one who blew it up on Saturday, right? And then you start Sogard because of that. And then Sogard gets rinsed in a period last night. And then it's tough. If they ever get that goaltending though, Tim, I'm going to be telling you about how they're 80-1 to lead February in points.
Yeah, Nick. And if I had 3 more inches, I'd be in the show.
Yeah, fair enough.
Detroit's like you said, Alex Lyon deserves a ton of credit. They've been outshot. They're 10-3-1 in their last 14. They've been outshot by 99 shots in that time period. But Lyon and company have posted a 916 and their shooting percentage around 14. So maybe I'm looking too far into the regression against a team like Ottawa, but that's where I'm going.
It's
All
certainly a
right.
concern. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. I mean,
Yeah, no, I think Detroit slowly will start coming back down to earth, but they're playing the Ottawa Senators on Wednesday night. So, I mean,
I
you're
think the way
full
to
value for
summarize it,
your pick here, Tim.
I think the way I would summarize it is Ottawa is again an underdog in a game where I think a lot of people would expect them to carry more of the play, which is insane. But it feels like we're saying that every single time, and I mean it hasn't worked out for them so far.
And sorry, Dave, one more thing. How you said that you can just see it now that like Ottawa gets one more win before the All-Star break, and all of a sudden it's like, what's the path?
The
Like, what's the
juice is
path?
flowing. Yeah, start
Uh,
flowing. We
Here's
come
the path,
back.
Tim. They need to
When
go about 25-7-4. I've been tracking this, so
well,
there you go.
I just
They
want
can
to
do it.
say, I want to say with that Leaf series with Winnipeg last week, I was in the shower and we had bet the Jets like the first night of that. And I'm in the shower and I'm thinking to myself, the Leafs aren't gonna crumble here. They're gonna crumble 2.5 months from now. I was like, what am I thinking being on the Jets? Like the Leafs are gonna answer the questions going into the break. And then I'm like, what a moron I am. They string you on longer than that. They don't
Hey, who
follow
won a
that.
series last year, Tim? Was it the Leafs or the Jets? I think it was the Leafs. So I think a lot of people kind of have that backwards right now, but I'll just throw that out there.
Right. Enough of Nick's Leafs. I've moved my office. My daughter has taken over the old room that I was in, and I have two Ottawa Senators jerseys in this room. You can't see them, but there's a Patrick Lalime jersey in that closet that I'm pointing to over my left shoulder, and then there's an Ottawa Senators jersey in this like little cubby thing over there, a white one. And so if we start going towards 27, 25, 7-4, I'll be breaking those out. Um,
Hamburglar. Get the Hamburglar.
yeah, I'll get the Hamburglar next. Next up, team we're going to talk a lot about in the second half of the show, where we go through the Western Conference futures and reset the West. The Los Angeles Kings are a slight road favorite in Nashville. The Kings are minus 118, Preds minus 102. Total here is 6. And I don't think we need to get too far into like the stats with the streak with the Kings and whatever. It does feel like this could be win or lose Todd McCullough's last game. I actually wish that there was a prop of will Jay Woodcroft be coaching the Los Angeles Kings first game back from the All-Star break, because that is my prediction here. It's a must. I think it's as close to a must-win game as you could get at this point in the season for LA. Like it's the team that they're going to be battling tooth and nail with in the playoff race, at least for the next little bit. And they've lost 100 games in a row or whatever it is, 14 out of 16, and have conceded such a huge lead in the playoff race. Everybody hates everybody in that room, it seems like. And the Predators feel like the team you just don't want to face in this kind of situation because they are just a dogged, hardworking team. They can score. They get good goaltending from Saros. You should expect it. They should have a huge goaltending edge here. I don't have a play here. I was looking maybe to think a buy low spot on LA and back them. I think the one bet I could be talked into is this game going past regulation, Nick.
Yeah, for me, I still look at this and it's just so hard for me to like accept that the Kings are this close to the Preds. Like it seems so crazy, and I look at them as being such a well-rounded team. But the reason I don't quite want to get there on the Kings is I do think their play is taking a bit of a step back compared to earlier in the losing streak, where I really think they were just running unlucky. And I don't think we have any confirmation that Talbot turns it around. Like that for me is the big question with the Kings that I don't think we have an answer to, is like what do we know that proves Talbot's actually a legitimately good starting goalie right now? I don't think that we do know it. So I think the popular play on this one that I probably will like, I passed on it on Monday and I was kicking myself, is Saros to go over his save prop. I think that'd be kind of the way I'd target the Kings getting there. They're going to be urgent. They're going to control more of the game, I think, but I don't really want to bet into that. I don't think we're getting quite the number. I've been burned on that a lot lately with LA. So I think that'd be kind of the one way I'd be looking at this. And I'm right with you. Is this McClellan's last game? I think it'll be fun if they shake things up over the break and just see if they kind of can get the momentum turned with the new coach.
It's a classic situation where it's not the coach's fault, I don't think at all. And he probably is almost like the right guy for the job. But in a situation like where you get outshot like 21-3 in the first period and your goalie plays really well but gives up 3 goals, and then the coach pulls the goalie and just puts another one in to try to spark the team, be like, you did this. That's what it feels like. But I do think that if they do make the move, it'll end up being Jay Woodcroft, because it's just the way that the Oilers and the Kings have met in the playoffs, and it would be funny. And yeah, fun soap
And
opera.
Woodcroft's case is not bad.
Yeah, it's
too,
great. I mean,
right? He did a pretty good job, I think.
Before Lou, grabbed Patrick Waugh from the Clouds, like if you asked me who I would want the next Islanders head coach to be, it would have been Jay Woodcroft. Tim, what do you think on Kings and Preds?
I bet the Kings already.
Okay.
I hate it. I mean, I'm going one more time. Like it's we should just cut the beginning part of the episode when I'm like, there's a clear goaltending advantage for the Red Wings. That's why I'm betting them. That's not the case with LA at all, but I guess we bet things for different reasons. I just believe that they're going to get it right. I can't understand what I think has really been the problem. And Nick, you alluded to this, is that the beginning part of the losing streak felt like some bad luck, overtime, shootouts. But now it seems like every game has been a different reason why they're losing. It's like in baseball when it's like, oh, we finally get pitching and then we can't hit. We're finally hitting and then we can't get pitching. Like it has been so many different things. And I just think the broken clock's going to be right twice a day. And eventually, like, just, only one of those problems is going to show up and the rest of them will be okay. Like I can't get here on the roster is just too good to be like this. And they, whether they are this bad or they're as good as they were in the beginning of the season, even somewhere in the middle still makes this like a play on the Kings for me. If you look earlier this season, Nashville, a couple weeks ago, Nashville played at LA. Both teams were pretty even on rest advantage, and the Kings were minus 144 favorites. Nashville plus 126 dog. Nashville wins 2-1. Now we go to Nashville and Kings are, I think I got them at like minus 113, something like that. It's 115 ish. Like I just still think the Kings.
Yeah, I do agree with that. And the one thing I would say that this would classify, in my opinion, is this is a road spot where I wouldn't give the traditional value to that because I think that if you're the Kings here, you can find a way to play a really competitive effort on the road. Like I've said, I think that the road thing a lot of the time I think has to do with the travel situation, has to do if it's kind of a letdown spot. And I think the ultimate thing that ties together that point, not just being like a trust me bro opinion, is that when we get into the playoffs and those situations are out the window and teams are always ready to go, home ice advantage gets overrated significantly. If you look at like the last 5 years, teams really aren't winning many more games at home um, than they are on the road in the playoffs. So I think that's kind of an interesting note. I think that kind of applies here, where you have to think the Kings can get it together and bring a good effort in Nashville for this one.
And a whopper to close out the first half of the regular season. It's San Jose, it's Anaheim. The Ducks are a minus 180 favorite. The Sharks are on the second half of a back-to-back. They are playing Tuesday night. We're recording this Tuesday afternoon. San Jose plus 150, total 6. I mean, I would play the Sharks if I had to play this game, but I don't have to. That's the beauty of it. So, uh, Nick, what do you think?
I like I think I could be talked into some Troy Terry props if they're not too juiced from where they've been. I really think he's going to get going. He's playing really well. So I think maybe point or over 2.5 shots. That'd be my favorite look. You get the good spot versus San Jose. But yeah, I mean, I don't really have much here either.
And it's the traveling back to back too, right? Of hey, California's a bigger state than you think. San Jose down to Anaheim. Talk about two teams that just want to get to the break. That's really why I'm struggling to find an edge, right? Like if I had to play it, leave off, I'm with you. Like the Sharks are closer to Anaheim than this, I kind of think, but I don't really know what we're gonna get here with two teams that have one foot in Cabo and one foot in Southern California here.
Yeah, I can't wait to see all the Sharks players enjoying their well-deserved breaks and wherever they go golfing and all of that.
I thought they had like 7 all-stars, if you ask me.
Who is their all-star? Hurdle?
It's gotta be.
Uh,
It's gotta be Hurdle.
it should
Mario
be Blackwood
Javier,
from just like 2
he's gonna have
games.
to hit
It's
us up.
Javier. It's him
Yeah.
from 2
Javier
games.
Jose, yeah.
That is. Send a
Yeah,
fan.
it's the All-Star, the Sharks All-Stars are the fans that we've met along the way. Uh okay. Let's reset the Western Conference here. And I think the conversation is a lot more interesting compared to where we are at the East, which is funny because the picture seems a lot clearer in the West, and that's usually the different, like it's usually the opposite. But where the picture gets muddled is at the bottom of the playoff race with a team like Los Angeles. Um, what the hell is going on with the Kings? What's going on now with the Blues getting hot all of a sudden? Uh, the Predators are hanging around. I mean, the Coyotes are still hanging around.
Kraken.
The Kraken,
Yeah.
yeah, getting
Don't
hot
forget
at
the
the same time.
Kraken.
Yeah. Um, I do think that even the even though we have a very good idea of who the top 6 playoff teams are going to be, Vancouver, Dallas, Vegas, Colorado, Winnipeg, and Edmonton. Although I will say, we talked yesterday about how people said, "Oh, this season's finally going to be different. Everything's going to change." Blah blah blah. Do you remember last year Winnipeg was first in the Western Conference right around this time, and then they had just a terrible second half and almost missed the playoffs? Like it's the same exact thing. It's crazy. It's the same exact season happening again.
And we still can't win money.
And we still get
we know it's gonna happen.
uh Vancouver is 7-1 to win the conference. That makes them the 6th favorite. I do think that kind of shows you where people's heads are at with this team. That to me is in terms of like the conference future board is I don't think it's a playable number at all, but I do think that's just like an interesting note, Nick. But what are your general thoughts here before we kind of drill a little bit into more of the specifics and go into some team things we're thinking here?
Yeah, sorry, you had me frozen there for a second because I was just thinking they're 7-1 to win the conference. They're nine
Yeah,
to one to win the cup. So
yeah.
You got a pretty clear pick there because the East is definitely going to send a team with a pulse to the Cup final. So if I had to choose between those two, it would actually be the conference one. Um, but I agree. I think the one team that I want to watch that we've kind of talked about, I look at the Dallas Stars right now, and that team is just so good. You're talking about their biggest flaw has been that Ettinger hasn't played very well. Like that is not a bad situation to be in. And I know he really wasn't that great in the playoffs last season either. But like their AHL team is absolutely stacked. They have two players that could come up and make a huge difference. And then you're already talking, they have three forward lines that are all dominating. Now they're playing Thomas Harley more minutes. Like I'm higher on the Stars than ever. So that's kind of the one I want to watch. I think we've said it, like even since last week, they have dropped. I think people are kind of piecing this together that they really look good. I think they're a more well-rounded team than anyone else in the Central. So that's the one I kind of watch. And then odds aside, I'd like to hear what you guys have to think. I don't think the Blues get in. I'll admittedly look dumb if I'm wrong, but I think they're fraudulent. I think this win streak has been lucky. I don't think they follow it up. So who knows? I think as much as I like what the Preds have done, it's the Kraken for me, odds aside, if I had to pick one. I think the Kraken are the most well-rounded team. And then maybe the Preds still sell Saros too. That's the other interesting thing where like the Kraken, you could argue, are almost I don't know if I want to say they'd be buyers, but if they did buy, I wouldn't think it was idiotic at all. Do you know what I mean? They're pretty well stocked in terms of prospects. We'll see. So I like the Kraken and I like the Stars are kind of the two angles that I'm a little still stock on. Obviously not changing my mind on the Oilers, but since when I was pumping that up, there's the outright favor. They're 7-1 to win the cup now. So that changed even quicker than I think we ever would have expected.
Yeah, and on the Kraken, like I kind of agree with you there, Nick. If Vancouver keeps this top spot in the Pacific, then the second wild in the top spot in the West, this second wild card team, like you're getting a Vancouver team in the first round that hasn't played in the playoffs since I was like 5 years old. Like there's in a team that we're like, oh, they're kind of overachieving. Like are they like not I'm not calling them frauds, but it's not like you're running into Colorado or Edmonton or Dallas, like kind of teams that have had deep runs. Like I think then you have a legitimate shot there to be interested in buying. Leboff, you said, yeah, this is a wild card race. And I read a funny line in The Athletic today that was like, to call this a race is, means that they're going forward. This is a race because teams keep dropping and stubbing their toes. It's race is a kind word here. It's just I kind of agree with you, Nick, on the Blues. But I've been like a boat on the Blues. When you turn a boat, it's like you turn it and it's delayed. I keep on being like the Blues. I'm like, they're gonna be good now. Wrong. They're gonna be bad now. Wrong. Like I keep being so a late reaction to what this Blues team is. I tend to agree with you on Seattle. The real thing is what happens to LA? Where the hell do they end up? They're still big minus money favorites to make the playoffs, which is, I'm buying on them tonight, but I don't know.
It's
I wouldn't, yeah, I would never bet that, but for me, it just feels so hard to envision them actually blowing it. Like, I still like the roster and the teams pushing to take their spot. Like, come on, if you blow this to any of those teams, it'd just be
And they're
something
about
pretty
to get a new
shocking.
coach bounce. We got to factor
yeah.
that. Like they're days away from getting a new coach bounce, right?
Uh, the thing that's killing me about the Kings is I've been, waking up every morning thinking, okay, maybe the numbers are going to start drifting to a place where we can really get talked into some, big picture buy low spots like on conference outrights or Stanley Cup or whatever. But they're not. So like I said, the Canucks are as high as 8-1 to win the conference. I'm looking here, like the numbers, of course, vary depending on the book you look at, but you can find them as high as 8-1. I would say 650 to 7 is probably the consensus if you averaged out what you're looking at. The Kings are right there. They're like 7 plus 750, 9-1. It's really not a difference, an actionable difference. Uh, in terms of making the playoffs, like you said, Tim, it's gonna just come down to who times their streaks correctly. I think the Kraken are probably the team that looks like the most likely to do that. But because of the way this race is setting up, and all of these teams, all of them have potential to lose 6 games in the blink of an eye in regulation in a row. Like, it keeps Calgary and Minnesota interesting, I should say. Um, in the make miss market, I don't think that the numbers are good enough, but yeah, it's wild. It's the Kings dropping has just made this so much more interesting than we thought it was going to be. When the question about a month and a half ago was just, will the Oilers get hot enough to put some real pressure on teams above the wild card race? And turns out they did.
Real quick, let me just ask, because if you rewind all the way back to the beginning of this season, you guys, kind of enlightened me that, hey, a lot of these futures markets, for example, will be kind of late to the party on adjusting their numbers. Like, this team can get really hot, and like, you don't have to, you can wait a little bit. You can still get a good price. LA, you're telling me, Leboff, that the bookmakers are basically saying LA still, they still think very highly of the Kings. Is this the bookmakers being delayed to the Kings' demise, or is this the bookmakers making a statement saying, no, this team is really good. This is not we're late to the party situation.
I think it's a mixture of both those things, plus the fact that they probably took a ton of LA money when they were
That's
hot.
what I was gonna say.
You know,
Me
I think
being one of those people.
Yeah, they got
it's
hot.
the LA liability and
Yeah.
the way they're playing.
I do want to bring up one future in the Western Conference that I like, and it's gonna sound funny if you've been listening to us since the beginning of the regular season. You know that Tim, and then he convinced me to do it. Bet Jack Campbell to win the Vezina. The thinking being, if the Oilers are historically good, which they had potential to be, like a Linus Ullmark situation where he just racks up so many wins, it's impossible to ignore. Stuart Skinner is 100 to 1 at some places. I'm seeing a 60, 100, and a 75. I don't think that those numbers are bad at all. Like, I would play Stuart Skinner at 100 to 1 right now to win the Vezina, Nick.
Yeah, I actually will agree with that. I think 100 to 1, it's playable. Obviously, you have to factor in that he's dug a huge hole compared to Hellebuck and Demko. But, and I mean, I guess Swayman too. The thing with Swayman that I think is always tough is that Allmark is such a damn good backup that his case is always going to get hurt by playing 10 less games or more than any other competent starter. But I agree that's just a little too long. If you're getting 100 to 1, that'd probably be the kind of number I'd want as like a fun punt. And then when you get closer down to 50 to 1, I'd say no. Especially because, like we always say, you want a goalie who's the clear-cut number one, and you want a goalie who's on a good team that defends well. And the Oilers, as much as it still seems to be shocking to some people, are actually a really good defensive team right now. Yep. I think their numbers will take a bit of a hit when they get into a tougher schedule here, but this is still a way better than average defensive team. So Skinner's going to be in a good situation to help make up.
34. He's played 34 games, and he's at a 9-10 right now. And of course, like it's very possible that these numbers come down a bit when the Oilers slow down, but everything's checking out for him. And you look at last year in 50 games, his save percentage was .913. So his career save percentage in almost 100 games in the NHL, 98 is .912. So he is shown to be a good NHL goalie. So it's not like this is just some fluky run for him personally. It has a lot to do with how the team's playing. And for the good news for you, Tim, is if you bet Skinner, you kind of cover your bases here. Like we'll just have to throw in a Calvin Pickard. We'll request the bet on Calvin Pickard, throw him up there, and all of a sudden you got all the Oilers goalies covered. What's the name of the guy in Bakersfield who was playing really well? You can get Rodrigue on the board as well, and we can have all 4 Oilers NHL and AHL goalies in our pocket by the time we get back from the All-Star break.
Campbell's also on a heater in Bakersfield, by the way.
I know, look out.
Watch out.
I saw that. Yeah, and the reality of these awards is, I mean, first off, you'd obviously rather, there's a little bit of recency bias. All things being equal, if Skinner managed to finish with identical numbers to Hellebuck, which is a huge if now. Don't get me wrong, but we're talking about 100-1 here. Then I would much rather have the guy who came in with a huge back half than the guy who dominated in the first third with how these votes typically have gone. And then the other factor that we know means nothing to nothing and is care how good your team is. You could have like all the Bruins' best defensive players mixed with Carolina and their coach, Rod's head coach, whatever you want to come up with, make a defensive super team. The Raiders won't care about that. It always just comes down to team stats. And if you look at it, it's true based off where these teams have finished. And like, especially some of the ones where both goalies just completely dominate, like something like the Jets this year with Brossoit. So I don't think there's any world where the Raiders are like, oh, the Oilers were actually too good defensively, so we got to knock
Right.
Skinner for that. So I think that's kind of a factor as well.
Leboff, what a surprise that was. I just had the wrong guy. I just had the wrong
As our
one.
friend of the podcast and personal friend of mine, Mike Francesa would say, right church, wrong pew.
Look, I told you it was going to be an Edmonton goalie.
Oh, yeah.
The goaltender from Edmonton. I told you.
Yep.
Oh,
Shame of it.
that's so good.
All right. So that'll wrap up us for the first half as well. Nick, did you want to talk about the February outright board?
Yeah, let's do it. I think the two that I like there, I'll throw Robertson, top goal scorer, 80-1 out there again.
Jason or Nick? Let's be specific
Oh,
because all of a
yeah.
sudden here comes
Good
Nick
call.
Robertson, everybody.
I mean, he is scoring at a ridiculous rate when he gets ice time, which anyways. I like Jason Robertson on his new line, which is just crippling people right now, to score the most goals in February. I think there's a world. He was one of the top goal scorers last year, and he just hasn't quite shot at the same rate this year. So I like that, targeting a really good line on a team with 13 games. And then, sorry, I'm just trying to pull up the prices here. I don't know if they took them down. But I think I have to throw out there, like we mentioned earlier, if you like the Sens, I think there's a lot worse than
Stop
80-1. 80-1 to win the most points in February. And I would much rather bet this than to make playoffs, which I have seen people discussing consistently. Like, what are we taking the Sens now? I think that has gotten some talk on Twitter. The Sens have a great schedule and they have 12 games. So they're right there. And one of their tougher games is Toronto, the first game back, but they played Toronto pretty well and that's a first game back, so I think that can go any way. And then they have 3 extremely soft games, which I like because maybe you can try to get a goalie going. I'll always carve the path out for this team. It'll probably end up looking idiotic, but I think that one is decent, especially some of the favorites in that one. Like I think the Stars and Hurricanes are going to have really good months, and I don't mind them. They both got a lot of games. They also play each other twice, so that's also something worth considering. Yeah. So I'm not proud of it, and we'll probably just pretend it didn't happen if it doesn't go my way. But I think that
I don't
is
see how it doesn't go
fun.
your way.
Yeah, this should be minus money. What are you talking about?
Yeah. And then you look to the last point we'll throw out there. We talk about how it doesn't matter with the Sens because it doesn't, but they've actually played a fairly tough schedule in the back half of January, and their expected goals rating, and it's more than just the expected goals. I think if you've watched the team, you can see. And I know this point kind of works both ways.
I've watched too much of the team. That's the problem.
I know. And how good do they look? Every game, there's a point where you're like, how are they not winning this game by 5? Like they're playing the Jets and they just dominate them, losing OT. Playing the Bruins, same story. I don't know. I think it's a way better way to target the Sens than anything else out there.
I think that's a great way to look at it. Is that if you do think that this team can do what they do every year and have like a hot streak in the dead of winter to make themselves 6 points behind the playoff cut line with 4 games to go instead of where they are now, then this is a bet tailor-made for you. So that's Ottawa to have the most points in February at 80-1, Robertson 80-1 to lead the league in February and lead the league in goals in February at 80-1. Both are, I think, at FanDuel. So the 100-1 on Skinner was at Bet River. So if you want to get in on that with us, those are 3 nice long shots to go into the All-Star break with, and maybe change the outlook of how you're going to be rooting for, who you'll be rooting for in in the second half.
One more thing, Leboff. That just thinking about Skinner here, letting it marinate a bit. I think it was 32 Thoughts on Monday. They
He's the Team
said
Canada
he's
goalie.
the Team Canada
Oh my
goalie.
God. I know.
No,
If I have to hear that conversation,
I
once a
can't.
week we have to have this conversation. There's no tournament coming. It's not for a year.
But
This
that
is a
means
conversation your country, Nick, needs so much help with this stuff.
It's and you know
Hypothetical
what?
Team
It's
Canada,
ridiculous.
Team-
People here have cried nonstop about what's wrong with our goaltending development and stuff like that. We have like 6 guys that look good right now. We can't pick between them. They don't look as good as like the US's goalies, but like it's not an epidemic here. Like we've got
the epidemic.
the cup winner who's dominating this year in Hill, and Skinner looks really good. And you know, Montembeau, there's options. It's
Montembeau.
anyways. And
the
the
U.S.
last
goalie
one,
is going to be quick. The U.S.
The U.S. goalie will be quick, and the
yeah,
Russians.
the U.S.
will have,
goalies are
will
stacked.
not,
Don't
the
get me
US
wrong.
Russia's not allowed in anything, and they have had like 8 great goalies. So
But Leboff, that means the writers gave us
I
a
know.
snapshot
know.
of what they think of Stuart Skinner.
I know. Trust me. I was
Sorry, let's
walking
throw
my dog
one.
when I was thinking about this, and that's what I was listening to.
I'm gonna throw one more punt out there too. Thompson is 200-1 to lead the month in scoring, and the Sabres have 12 games, and I think that is a really good number. I think, like I said, if we had Nick Giffen break down this market, I think that mathematically these would all not look great. So you're coming at it with that kind of a thing. But Cage at 200, he's playing a lot better. Sabres have 12 games. He's as good a goal scorer as really anyone except for the guys that are way, way up this board. So that's the other one I like.
Great. Perfect. All right. Great way to send everyone into the All-Star break. We'll be back on Tuesday when the NHL starts turning its lights back on. Until then, enjoy the All-Star game if you can, or whatever else you want to watch. It's fine by me. For Nick and Tim, I'm Mike. Best of luck with all your bets. Hopefully, by the end of the month, we're sweating out some serious long shots here.